Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast Adventure Travel Series, where we embark on thrilling journeys and share captivating stories exploring the world of adventure travel. Join me as I share the stories of guides, outfitters, and destinations that will ignite your wanderlust and inspire your next great adventure. Whether it's scaling majestic peaks, diving into turquoise waters, or traversing vast wilderness, we unveil the hidden gems that every outdoor enthusiast dreams of exploring. Let's get after it. Hey, Michael and Therese, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is going to be a pretty fun conversation. I have a feeling we're going to wander all over the place, as we have been before the recording started.
That is what travel's all about, wandering, right?
That's it. Yeah. Nice segue. Ooh, man.
Whoa.
We're bringing it. We're bringing it.
Yeah, man, I got some professionals on. I better step up my game. So let's start with a brief overview of High Travel Tales and how it came to be. For those that might not know, probably a few listeners don't know.
I suppose we should just start that really briefly, and then I'll hand over a moment to Michael, is that High is H-I, not, as you might think, H-I-G-H, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's H-I Travel Tales, and the H stands for Michael's last name, Hodgson, and the I stands for my last name, Iknoian, and that's where it came from. And is that a piece of trivia for you too, Rick?
That's pretty clever. I did not know that.
Well, there you go. We just don't want people saying it's High Travel Tales. Do you write about cannabis?
So is High always both letters capitalized?
Yep.
Okay, got you.
Both letters capitalized. It is an acronym.
Yeah. I love it. I did not know that. Well, see, I learned something new too. Awesome.
There we go.
Good job.
That was Therese's creativity at its best. She always came up with names. So, yeah.
And how did you come up with the idea? How did the whole concept come to life?
Ooh. Evolution, just a natural process of things. I think Therese and I have always been travelers. I've been traveling since I was a young lad with my mom and dad. And so travel has always been part of my soul. And when Therese and I were working together with Snooze, Specialty News, it's a trade news service for the outdoor and fitness industry, we traveled. And even during that time, people were asking us about where our favorite places were and all that kind of stuff. And when we sold Snooze and moved on, we had to kind of figure out what it was we wanted to do. And Therese figured it out sooner than I did, right?
Yeah. Well, we both moved in some different directions, but they still always involved travel. That was the thing. We just loved sort of exploring in different places. We were always curious about what was there, and we always loved discovering sort of unexpected things around the corners in maybe very common places. And people would start asking us about these things. So we decided that if people are asking about it, that then we need to write about it. And that's kind of, in very short, how it came about.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
that's
you
guys...
full disclosure. We both had our own websites after Snooze too, and websites were kind of existing in tandem to Snooze. It sort of melded. I had Adventure Network, and Therese had Total Fitness Network, and we sort of melded those together into a travel thing, and we've stumbled along ever since, trying to find our way in the world.
I can relate to that. Did you always think it would be a media thing? Did you ever contemplate doing anything else outside of media?
Media?
You mean guiding trips, or?
Yeah, leading trips, or I don't know. I mean, you guys have been in media. It seems like as long as I've known you, Michael. I knew you day 16 though, but you were sort of in media, but not as.
Well, I was always in the media before that too. I mean, because I came from a journalism background. So it was really writing and photography from as long as I can remember for myself. It just wasn't necessarily in outdoor or travel fields. So media was the way it was just in our blood. So that's the way we thought we would probably take this over the last few years. especially with our photography, people have been asking us to, gee, do you lead trips? Will you lead trips? So certainly that's something that we have considered and may venture into at some point in very select ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like for me, media was a whole nother thing. Michael, you go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you
Yeah,
there.
well, it is. I mean, we're all media people, but before that, I mean, you knew me at A16, Rick, when I was a guide.
Right.
As one of the founders of Adventure 16's outings program. So guiding and leading trips was something I know and something I love and something I was good at. And it was always sort of in the back of my mind that maybe we could lead trips, but it just seemed an easier evolution to launch a website than it did to launch a guiding business. I may have been wrong on that, but we'll more on that later.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right on there. I think launching a guy, having done that a couple of times, that's a big lift. Yeah. There's a whole nother level of, I mean, all of these things have their own, list of things to do, but it seems like guiding and leading trips and things has another level of things to do. Whereas media, at least what I found, is it's basically, don't get me wrong, creating content is a lift in and of itself, but I don't have to, get people to sign waivers and show up and all these other things,
but you still have to worry about liability and photos adjusting and layouts and promotion and marketing.
Yeah.
No, you're not having individuals signing liability waivers, which is a whole nother. You don't have to herd cats other than hurting each other, I suppose.
Yeah.
So,
it's got its.
Are you referring to me? Are you referring to me on that one, honey?
Yeah, meow.
Yeah.
Okay, now don't get all cooey on me now. Come on now. So let's share one or two. Let's go with one of your most memorable outdoor or travel experiences that have kind of shaped your perspective on the world and maybe on your brand. Maybe start with your brand first. Is there any adventure that you were on that just like, this, I get it. This is me. This is what I'm all about.
Well, I think that for me, at least one of them is stepping way back to college, because although my family traveled a lot, it was camping. It was all over the West. It wasn't a lot of, we'd never really gone to Europe as a family. And I was the first one to do that. And that was, I went to Germany to the university for a year, and it was a really big deal in my family. And I got to tell you, getting to Europe and traveling in Europe, spending 2 months wandering around with youth hostels and a backpack on my back, and just being in Germany, dealing with different cultures, opened my eyes to this big world that was out there and how many amazingly wonderful things there were to see and experience, and experiencing the cultures and people of the world that really influenced and interact in many ways to create the reality that we have. So I came back from that really with a much broader perspective of what life and travel really meant.
That makes sense. Michael, anything for you?
Well, you had asked the question sort of, it's kind of a two-part question, because you'd asked, relating to this business, if I heard you right, that what made us kind of go, or made me sort of go, this works.
Yeah, that was the first question. This is now anything that's shaped your perspective on the world. Is there any adventure or guiding experience or something that kind of shifted how you looked at things?
I mean, I think it's when I spent time in Kenya when I was in college. And I've always traveled, as I said, and travel. My parents are British, so I'm the only North American. So we had to go back to England to see family. So summers were spent in England. So international travel has always been part of my heart and soul and who I am. But it wasn't until I went to Kenya and spent a few months when I was, I think, 19, 20, so long ago, Rick.
You're a kid.
But yeah, I was. I'm still a kid.
Yeah, me too.
There you go. And it was a seminal experience for a young man to be in an environment that is so different and unlike anything I'd grown up in.
I'll bet.
And it opened my eyes to new cultures, new ways of thinking, seeing parts of the world that I'd seen only through National Geographic or Life pages.
Mm-hmm.
It awakened my soul even more to want to travel, and it wormed a piece of the world into my heart. Kenya's just a big part of my heart forever.
Yeah, that's a special place. Both of those sound like
I
good
remember
adventures.
in particular being in Italy. This sounds really strange because I spent so much time in Germany, but I remember so vividly walking into a museum in Italy. I mean, going into museums to see the great masters was not something I grew up doing, being a California Valley girl. Not that valley, SoCal, Central Valley. And I remember walking into the museum, into the great big atrium where the statue of David was, and being so completely awestruck by this amazing, huge statue. It was so much bigger than I'd imagined and seen in pictures. I mean, that was something that made me really step back. I mean, I can still see this in my brain and the impact it made on me about art and what was out there in terms of exploring.
Right. Yeah, that'll do it. I mean, we don't see a lot of those things, even as kids. If we were fortunate to grow up with parents that traveled around like that, 9 times out of 10, my parents never took me to Europe, and it was all we could afford to go on vacations to Yosemite. That was a big deal for us, but we all had our thing.
Yeah.
And so how has High Travel Tales evolved since its inception? What challenges did you face building it and growing it? Probably still facing challenges doing that.
Jesus,
is it still pretty much
have?
Is it pretty much as you planned when you started it, or it must have evolved?
Yeah, it is not as we planned, or at least not as I planned or envisioned.
Right.
The media landscape has completely changed. I mean, that's anyone who's been following media can see that. And as such, I think, I don't know about you, Therese, but I kind of felt we'd launch a website. We're really good at what we do. We've got good images. Build it and they will come. Not the case. Not the case at all.
Right.
What do you feel, Therese? I mean, it's for me, I see it differently because I've been doing most of the admin. Therese is basically, if a word appears on our website, she's edited it, touched it, or massaged it in some way. So,
yeah, Michael does a lot of the IT and background stuff because that's sort of not my thing, and I do a lot more of the marketing and PR and writing and editing stuff and sort of organizing stuff. But I will say, I think, in many ways, I felt the same thing. It wasn't so much put it up there and they will come, but I also thought we'd be able to simply write what we wanted, how we wanted. And after a few years, we were figuring out that, not a few years, you can't just write. You have to write in a certain way. You have to sort of conform your writing very often to make sure you've got all your little keywords and proper SEO and sort of things. And at times that can get frustrating. It's, I just want to write a story, dang it, and be creative.
At times?
Every time.
time.
I'm going to tell you what, every time I'm like cursing at the computer.
Yeah.
It's like, I got to get a keyword in here. And that can be very frustrating. And we've learned to work with that, although it's still sometimes frustrating. And over the years, we've managed through some of that emphasis to get our stuff on a lot of, first page of Google searches. It's been really surprising over the years. I sometimes do searches for our stories when I want to look up one of our stories for reference for something, and I'll search for a keyword on Google thinking, well, let's see what happens. And I'm like, oh my God, it's number 3 after that subject, or it's, number 8 on the page or number 5. And you're like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But then you've got, the world of Google that controls things, and you just never know what its mood's going to be at the moment.
And good on you for figuring that out and actually continuing to do, get you those high rankings. That's hard to do.
It's really hard to do. And it's been very satisfying to see some of that stuff.
I'll bet. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also been equally frustrating because it's you end up playing the Google game of SEO and the Google game of, Google has incredible power.
Mm-hmm.
They can make or break a website. And it's, to be honest with you, for me, I think I can speak for Therese too. I'm just tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not able to write the way I want to write, or create content the way in which I want to create content, as long as I'm playing the game Google wants me to play.
Yeah, it has
And I think
changed
that's
that
also,
dramatically.
it has changed it. And I think also some of the other things that we see in there is, because of all the games that people play with SEO to try and stuff keyword and stuff, Google's constantly trying to swat that down. And in the process of doing that, it affects all sorts of other things. And you're constantly having to change how you do SEO and keywords, and in order to ensure you rank. And then that was something that I did not expect, want, or need. And I'm tired of it. So, I mean, we've reached that point with our business where it's like, we're just going to write, we're going to take great photographs, we're going to write great stories. And if, readers like it, great. But I'm kind of tired of playing the Google game.
I think
it becomes a little bit like whack-a-mole, trying to figure out where.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think that's why I kind of backed off on my photography, because I didn't do a good job. I hated that part of it. I was terrible at it. I was frustrated with it. I didn't want to do it. And in hindsight, I didn't do it enough. And it was tough getting my photography out there and exposed like it needs to be exposed in order to sell stuff. And just, I just did not do a good job of it. And that's why I still love taking pictures. Don't get me wrong. I love traveling, going and taking photos. Still think I can, push the button at the right time and have the settings right and capture a pretty good image. But it's just the sales part of just like, God, I'm over that, we do something else. Not to say that podcasting is any easier, but I think it's still new and you don't have to do all the keyword stuff. And there's a lot of AI services now that make that a lot easier than it used to be.
Oh, well, that's the scary part of this world right now. So we're not going to talk about AI.
That AI is changing everything. Google, Google has, you're going to hear me say it 100 times, Google has way too much power. I think we all need to, at some point, realize either you play the game or you decide to do it your own way. So to answer your question, the business has changed for us a ton since when we first started it, through a lot of learnings and realizations. Therese and I are both also, I'm getting older. Therese is basically staying.
No, I'm not getting older.
You're 30, you're 38 forever, and that's great.
29.
Awesome.
29. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's, for us, we're back to that, and it's resonating with people. I'm going to write a story that I want to write that is going to be a great story, damn it. And I'm going to take photographs that I want to take, and they're going to be great photographs. I mean, there's a reason that Therese just won, Photographer of the Year with the North American Travel Journalists Association, because she's a damn good photographer. And there's a reason I was number 2, because I'm not as good as her. No, just kidding. But it's, you guys are both great photographers. You guys are, good job. And we want to do that. Thank you. And we want to continue doing that. And we want to do it for the people that appreciate it. And so that's caused us to shift a little bit too. I mean, that's kind of how we go about doing our business and how we go about attracting people and eyeballs to our website, and eyeballs to our content, and eyeballs to our photographs. And that has evolved.
Well, nice segue there. So what types of content do you find resonate most with your audience, and how do you approach creating engagement with?
Well, that's actually, that's where we're kind of going, after sort of writing what we want to write to be creative, and then trying to write journalism, and then realizing we have to put all these keywords in to satisfy people and satisfy Google. We're kind of we're heading full circle in a way, that we're finding that what is resonating most are things that are more deeply personal. And I don't mean sort of, deeply emotional essays or something, but definitely personal explorations, personal experiences, things that are allowing readers to connect better with a place, which is what we really like. We like telling stories, but telling them not in a, a little bit outside the norm. So it's not that typical, here's 5 things to see here. It's not sort of your listicle thing, which anybody can do. And certainly AI can do really well.
Yeah, right.
We need to break beyond that to do things that maybe AI is not going to be able to do really well and things that we can do really well. And we're getting a lot more engagement with these personal experiences that still tell a story and still reveal a place and allow people to feel the heartbeat of a place and connect with that place and the people, but in a different manner.
And through your connection experience too. I think that drives it as well. Yeah. That's the
right through Therese's eyes, through my eyes, for sure.
Right.
But I will also say it's also the platform. We've started. We're late to the game, but we started moved our newsletter to Substack. And whatever people want to feel about Substack, it's actually, I think it works very well for the right people. And it's been really good for us because what it's shown us is that we're able to write engaging content for people that have actually said, I want to read your engaging content, as opposed to writing really amazing content, which we have on our High Travel Tales website, that gets a few eyeballs because it's just one of 10,000 stories that 8,000 travel writers have written that week.
On 8,000 websites.
Exactly right. And it is a little bit like walking into a Taylor Swift concert and shouting out and trying to get noticed.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Unlikely.
Well, if you're wearing sequins, you might get noticed, but.
Well, it is.
You don't want to see Michael in
sequins. Put yourself,
no,
it is on how you want to put yourself out there.
I might have.
Yeah. Well, no, that was a pink boa, but that's another story. But yeah, it's. I think it's the realization for us that we want to work harder at creating great content for people that want to read it, and we said that earlier, and so hence the migration to the newsletter and Substack, and that's getting great resonance. We're picking up subscribers daily, which is super. We just told a personal story about Therese winning the photographer of the year, and the various photographs that we'd won for. We kind of told the stories behind the photographs, and we were getting so many comments about how fun people thought that was.
Cool.
So we're going to start doing more of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. What other?
And as much as we hate to admit to this, sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. I love words. That's where my background is. But we're also leaning more toward talking about evolution, toward more heavily image-focused stories with some writing and explanation for sure, but not like 3,000 word pieces every time you turn around, because thank you, the text world. I think people just aren't reading. A majority of people are not reading.
We don't have time. I mean, it's like, gosh, we're reading so many things. You're online all the time. Just read text, and it's like, just show me something and give me a quick blurb. Have you posted an image, just an image, and maybe titled it and left it alone and see what that does?
You mean on our website? No. That's an interesting idea. I mean, that flies in the face of all SEO rules.
Right. Or on Substack, just throw that image up there with the title and say, we were here. And
that we're going to do.
Okay.
That we're doing.
I'm curious to see how
we used to do something. Yeah, well, we'll probably put a few words in there. Come on, we're writers. It would kill
words
us not
happen.
to. I think. Yeah. Oh boy, do they. But we've talked about creating just a photograph with a few words, calling like a postcard, and seeing how people resonate with that.
And we used to do something like that, which is what Michael, I think, started to say way back at the beginning. We would do these little postcard things, and words took over. But that's something we can do much more easily on Substack, where you've just got maybe a powerful image and tell a little bit of story about it, maybe about how you took it too. Because I do know, someone in particular had told me once, well, I really hate seeing these really great photos and that people don't tell me how they got it.
Yeah.
So maybe we're going to tell people like how we got it more, settings and things too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I think a lot of photographers like to go get the image themselves. So I shot that. Everybody wants that in their quiver, right? We've all done that. So
Sure.
What other media landscape tools or trends are evolving. Did you find anything Substack sounds pretty exciting. Is there anything else that you've been looking at you're going to jump into or aware of that's coming down the line? Or
there's always that's the trouble with this internet and digital world.
Tell me about
There's
it.
always something coming down the line,
Yeah.
and I mean, I think the thing Therese and I keep watching, and I'll actually be on a panel at the North American Travel Journalists Association annual conference down in Galveston, talking about AI. And I think we're watching the AI thing, not that we're going to use it. Although I will admit I have started using it to research story ideas, and it's pretty darn good.
It's scary
if you
good.
use it in that way. To write a story, not so much. But I will tell you, Rick, I showed Therese. I had it create one of the programs. I said, give me a gourmet hamburger in an old town San Francisco restaurant. And by goodness gracious, it kicked up a photograph for me that looked like anyone could have taken it, and I could publish it, and it'd be super easy.
Yeah.
And you're going to see, unfortunately, a lot of people probably doing that in the travel world. And that, again, is that.
I think something like that is going to start taking a percentage of work from stock photo sales.
Totally.
Because why does a person have to go buy something when they can just go into this program and say, oh, I want a photo of the train running through the mountains beside a river. And there they go. They've got it. Now, is it real or not? Because for fun, I will tell you, I said, oh, Michael, well, put in a request for the Moai and Easter Island with the Milky Way, because I was there a year ago and I took some really great photos and I really like them. Well, it came up with some photos, but having been there, I looked at them and said, well, that's not right. That's not real. The Moai aren't facing that way, and you couldn't get the Milky Way over there in that way. And, the light here is not right. It just wasn't right.
It'll get there, though.
But as someone who has never been to Easter Island, and I've seen lots of photos,
yes.
I would never have known.
Wouldn't know, right? Exactly. You're right. Yeah.
I wouldn't have known. I mean, the same thing. A friend of mine was looking at a large publication that published an article of and showing a photo of an Arctic fox. And he looked at it. He goes, "That's not an Arctic fox. That's a red fox. It's been digitally AI altered. You can see the ears, and turned into an Arctic fox because of AI." But again, unless somebody's really on the game, they're not going to know, and that's scary.
Yeah, that is, because I think the other thing that's happening that's driving AI is people, publishers and editors and content creators are getting more and more lazy, right? So rather than, like, if you're doing a podcast and you're talking to somebody who's been to the Vatican, I don't have an image of the Vatican. You go to AI or go to some stock site and get a Vatican image just to throw it up there. So I think all that stuff just creates laziness, unfortunately, and it's inauthentic content.
Inauthentic content, and lazy is one way of looking at it. There's also, we all know the media landscape is just getting hammered. People aren't willing to pay for content, right? So if people aren't willing to pay for content, and boy, you can get Therese and I started on what we were getting paid as writers 30 years ago and what we're being offered to get paid as travel writers now.
Yeah.
And people bemoan the world of being travel writers, but it also is, well, the publishing industry doesn't really exist to pay the travel writers. So until people are willing to pay for content, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a digitally altered image of the Vatican because someone hasn't been there recently.
Yeah.
Because they can't afford to go.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, let me interrupt here, because Michael used a word, until people are willing to pay. And I will assert that world is over.
Yeah,
people are not going to be willing to pay. 30 years ago, 25 years ago, they were willing to pay. And there's maybe a couple here or there that are still, I don't know how long they're going to last. But when I look at what people are doing, because then also so many people want to be the next big influencer or a travel writer. And of course, you have to say influencer with that kind of voice too, of course, right? They all they want to do is travel. They aren't writers. They aren't photographers. They really are doing this because they just want to travel. And so there's a
they're not good travelers either, many of them.
And they're not good travelers either.
Right.
They're just doing, what you see listed everywhere. And lopping it up, and it's competing with good stuff. The whole media world and publishing world is a very tough place to be, and it continues to get rougher.
But do you think that as all this stuff continues to evolve, it will be more and more obvious to people that what you're reading, what you're seeing, what you're listening to is not authentic? You will be able to tell that it was manipulated. Do you think that will separate the wheat from the chaff, and those of us that still focus on creating good, authentic content with authentic images, authentic conversations, all these kind of things, they'll kind of separate it out and maybe the cream will rise to the top? Do you think that'll happen?
I think that we're in a transition phase, and right now everybody's leaping all over this stuff.
Sure, it's the
and
Wild
not
Wild
really
West
thinking
right
a
now.
lot about it. So
Yeah.
I think that I think it will probably get to some place like that where there will be the wheat from the chaff and people will know and appreciate. But I think it's going to take a few years. Now it's moving pretty quickly. So, I might have said, it's going to take 5 years, but yeah, maybe not. Maybe it'll take 2 years. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there will be a point where people will understand more. And of course, there's probably also going to be, the legal system is getting involved. So there's going to be some legal regulations about how and when you can use AI and what you can do. And so, we're in a very transition state, and we have to see how that goes.
Yeah.
It's funny because listening to Therese, it sounds like we're talking about the internet when it was first launched.
Yeah. No, you're right.
It is the same digital evolution that is happening over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just now happening at a much faster pace.
And AI has allowed it all to happen. AI has allowed all the media to happen at once, right?
No question. No question. And AI is, it's just like the internet or just like social media.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting and potentially beneficial tool that can be just dramatically misused.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it relies upon the intelligence and the comprehension of people to be able to sort out real from fake. And I don't have a ton of confidence. I'm hopeful. But what all this is doing is it's continuing to upend the whole media landscape. And it's causing, I don't think the whole thing about paid content is, people aren't willing to pay for it. I disagree. I think people are willing to pay for content that resonates with them. And those may be small audiences. And that may be the way the digital world changes media. Mm-hmm. Is that all of a sudden, instead of speaking hopefully to millions that subscribed to at one point to maybe the New York Times, or tens of thousands that subscribe to the local newspaper, maybe now it's 1,000 that are subscribing to a local community website, or to our travel blog.
Yeah, and I think that's the direction that a lot of that's one of the things that I first discovered in getting into this content creation thing was you don't need to be important and followed by everybody. It only takes 1,000 people. And if you guys have read 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly, Kevin Kelly, he founded Wired Magazine, and he's done some pretty interesting stuff. And he wrote this, it's kind of an article, maybe a little longer than an article, about 1,000 True Fans. And he says, if you have 1,000 people that are paying you $10 every month for whatever it is you're creating, a great gin, a great, collection of photographies, a great, something written every month, you can do pretty well in the world these days. So you really just focus on the minimum viable audience, and you can do okay, and let everybody else have the wheat and the chaff, knock themselves out. So
I think that for so long, a lot of the media, partly because of the Googles of the world and the way people have been taught, have been focused on numbers. Oh, how many visitors do you have? Oh, how many followers do you have?
Yeah.
And the more, the better. And if you have fewer, you're therefore not as good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we've gotten caught up in, but we're beginning to realize, like you just said, that is really not as important. No, I don't have to have 20,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
Sure, at some point the destination marketing organizations and the brands will probably, and some have already, learn that that's not necessarily the quality that they may want, because a lot of people are also buying these things.
Yeah.
And if you don't go out and buy them, like we don't do, then you may not get as many.
Right.
And that number is not going to be as high, but it's okay. We can hope that people will learn that quality is better than quantity.
Yeah. And that's like the specialty side of the world that we come from, Michael, and the whole, retail side of the world. We always wanted to have that really special product that was only sold in the specialty stores and that's got all blown up. I mean, it's I was seeing something yesterday on LinkedIn about, all these people making excess stuff and they sell it at a discount. That's taking the specialty out of specialty, when you make too much, when you just wait till the end of the season and buy it at half price. So, and everything circles around, it all comes back. So, yeah.
It does. It does. You end up looking at, and I think that's where, Therese and I have arrived at, you end up looking at what your goals are. And as you just alluded to, it's finding that community of engaged people who really appreciate your content.
Exactly. Yep.
And are willing to, at the very least, subscribe to it. And at the very best, pay a few dollars each month for it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's where we're starting to head. And we're finding success with that. And it's gratifying.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
I just said good.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
It's good.
It is good. It is good. Hey, you love to learn, right? You're probably a lifelong learner like me. New photography techniques, new tools like AI. I know, it's fun and keeps the creative juices flowing. I just purchased a course on AI from Creative Live the other day. I'm always looking for tools and methods to streamline my production process for the Outdoor Biz Podcast. And Creative Live has an amazing selection of live and on-air classes. Over 1,500 curated classes in photography and video, money and life, craft and maker, art and design, and music and audio. There's something for everyone. And new classes added every month. I've watched many of their on-air broadcasts for free and then purchased the class later because it was so good. Go to ricksaez.com/creativelive and learn something new today. That's www.ricksaez.com/creativelive. And drop me an email and tell me what course you chose. Maybe I'll check it out too. Let's get back to the show. Speaking of, audience and community, how do you connect with your audience? What role does community engagement play in the success of High Travel Tales? Do you interact with your readers a lot at all?
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Not enough.
Huh.
Not enough. And I think we're learning that. Again, it takes. Again, I can speak for myself. I'm old, 65. So it takes me a while to learn these things.
Right there with you.
Yeah. So the world of community, to me, it's like,
Wait,
I'm creating. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, honey. I was trying to keep that secret.
Oh, she just learned that? Oh, man.
She just learned that I'm 65. This is going to be a conversation when we hang up.
Announcements.
I think the world of community that we have learned and are learning, and again, Substack is starting to teach me, this is not a promotion for Substack, but it's turning into one, that you have to engage with your community if you wish them to engage with you. It's not a one-way street.
I'm finding out the same thing. Yeah.
And it's the engaging, and I think and Therese can jump in here in a second because I'm sure she's got some passionate views about it, but trying to engage on Instagram and Facebook, that's not really a community. Maybe a few of them are, but the majority of them are people that just followed because they're looking for likes too. And if you like me, I like you. And if you stop liking me, I don't like you. And well, maybe I don't like you today, so I'm going to unfollow you. I mean, that's not community.
And they're flipping through the screen, as fast as their thumb can flip.
Goodness. Yeah. There's no engagement, Rick. So for us, I think we're finding, and we're still on the path of discovery, but there's opportunities through communities like Substack to engage in chat, to engage in answering questions within the people that subscribe. So people have to want to be part of the community. Then once they're part of the community, we can engage with them. They can engage with us. And it's a learning process. We're heading down that path, and I think it's the right one.
I think that's what's driving the newsletter explosion, the growth, I should say.
Yes.
I've had a newsletter for a long time, but I think everybody's realizing this, that you need to engage, and you can't do it on social media. You're right, Michael. It's just too noisy, and it's just too,
It's way too noisy. We
yeah.
post things, and I got to say
And it's too
that's
inauthentic too, I think. It's just, a lot of you might have
and
1,000
if you try
followers,
to be
but
authentic,
yeah, they don't
we
care.
try to be
Yeah, no,
authentic
yeah,
as
yeah.
have tried to be. Somehow that just doesn't cut through. People are
Listen to us
so into
60-year-olds talk
we
about social
jokingly
media.
talk about we jokingly talk about, oh, that's
Sorry.
not an Instagram photo. It might be a great
Right,
photo, but it's not an Instagram photo because it doesn't
right,
have enough sunset and color or whatever.
right.
And people, we get watching people follow and unfollow you is just the funniest game. So you're right, that's not engagement. People coming in to say, oh yeah, okay, I'll follow you if you follow me. And of course, then I think back to growing up, and my mom taught me that, having someone following me was really not a good thing. And now it's a good thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
I'll stop following you, honey. I'm sorry.
okay, stop following me, please. So yeah, having engagement. And now I do find that there are, in a different note, certain communities that may be on the Facebook platform where you're with an actual community that is maybe your people or an extension of your people, that then you get a lot of great engagement as compared to something as superficial as a very broad Instagram platform. And that's where the Substack and the newsletter like that comes in. We're able
And I think
to
groups
really
on Facebook is where you get that. If you belong to a group of like the OWAA group or the nature photographers in California group, I'm making that up,
Yes.
whatever it might be, right? Those groups are people that are there because they want to be there, they want to learn, they want to engage, they want to interact. Whereas just your normal feed, oh my God, it's noisy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And even within the groups, it can be noisy. You have to pick your groups.
Certain topics. Right.
I'm in one group right now that I'm about ready to leave. It's a camera group. I won't say who it is, but people will post actual real questions that you can tell they're maybe beginners, but they're looking for real input, and all they get is insults.
Oh, that's
and you're going, great. That's just the kind of community I don't want to be a part of.
Yeah, exactly. That's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the state of the world right now. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. How about that?
Yeah, let's get positive.
Let's talk about, we're probably going to hear about that last segment, but that's okay. I love hearing about this stuff. Can you each share a personal favorite outdoor or travel destination and what makes it special to you? Do you have a top of the lister, or I don't know?
Therese, you want to go
first? Yeah, I have a couple of really key ones. One is the Dolomites in South Tyrol of northern Italy. Actually, mountains in general, but the Dolomites in particular are amazing. The scenery is amazing. The people, the culture, the mix of Italian and German, the food, the lifestyle. But once again, go back to the hikes and the rocks and the scenery are absolutely stunning. And I've been there several times. Michael and I have been there a couple times, and we were at the point of trying to get back there again when COVID struck. So when COVID struck, we did what I think a lot of people did. We started talking about places that we hadn't been back to that we wanted to get to or get back to. And that was one of them. So we made a super effort last year, finally, to get back there. And we said, oh gosh, this is something that has to be in our list just about every year. It's fantastic.
Cool.
And then secondary, I must say, it's on a very different landscape note. I personally have fallen in love, and this has also only been since COVID, interestingly enough, with the desert and the desert landscape. I could go back to Death Valley all of the time. I mean, the Mojave and all of that, Southern California desert, but Death Valley is so varied. And I will admit, before I spent much time there about, 4 or 5 years ago, I was one of those people, even though I'm from California, who kind of thought, oh, well, it's a desert. Yeah. But oh my
gosh, an amazing place.
It's an amazing place between the dunes and the mountains and the trees and the rocks and the salt flats and the hikes and the beautiful colored rock canyons. You could just, it's
and the
amazing.
Changes
and
of
that's
light.
why.
Whenever you're there, you can go back there 10 different times of the day, and it's 10 different experiences. That's what I love about it.
That's what's so beautiful about it. And so when, the lake in Badwater Basin came back to a great extent in February, that's one reason why I had to leap in the car and go back down there, because I had to see this thing. And it was amazing.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, an ingracious plug, perhaps, or however you want to put it.
Yeah.
People who are listening to this need to go see Therese's photo from Dante's View of Lake Manly.
pretty amazing.
That's in our Substack newsletter. It's the starburst she's got and the reflections in the lake. It's just you can't not see that and not go, oh my goodness, I have got to go to Death Valley.
Yeah.
It's amazing photograph and amazing place without question.
Yep.
I can see why Therese loves it.
Yep. Michael, how about your spot?
There's two for me also. I mean, I love so many places in the world. People often ask me, where's your favorite place to travel? And my pat answer, but it's not really a pat answer, is wherever I am right now, because I'm just genuinely curious. I love to travel. But if it's a place that I want to keep going back to time and time and time again, anywhere in Alaska, the Arctic Refuge, it's just endless landscapes. It just mountains, views, wildlife. I mean, my passion is wildlife photography. That always gets me. Kodiak Island. I had a chance to cover the Iditarod many years ago, and so I got a chance to visit Nome in the winter. I have found that every experience I've had in Alaska has just been memorable. So Alaska will keep pulling me back. And then Kenya. I could go back to Kenya over and over and over again, and the people, the wildlife, again the landscapes. It's again, as I said, it's a place that's wormed its way into my heart. So
a special place.
Going back here in some ways, it is. It reconnects me to Earth.
Yeah, I agree with you about the Arctic. It's just unbelievable up there.
Oh yeah, it's stunning.
Love it there. Yeah. What advice would you give to individuals What advice would you give to individuals aspiring to pursue a career in adventure travel writing or photography, just content creation?
After that long discussion we had, it's like,
you still want to do this?
You still want to do this? Well, you definitely will need to be prepared to do a lot of different things to be able to have a success and make a living. You can't just say, these days, most people can't just say, I'm going to be a writer and I'm going to be in the outdoor and travel media industry. You have to be willing to write copy and, sell goodness knows photographs in whatever way you can, or, work for destinations in some way. It's a multifaceted world to be able to become successful in some way. And like I say, to put food on the table. But you also have to, ignore a lot of that noise around you. You have to make sure you let you become you. You have to let you and what you are shine. You have to realize that this is important to be real to yourself and true to yourself. On the other hand, it's there are some people who decide that, they just want to be a travel writer because they want to travel, and that's the wrong reason to get into it.
Yeah, if you're looking to get into this because you just want to travel, wrong, absolutely the wrong reason. I hearken back to when I wanted to become an outdoor writer, Rick, which is way back in the day. And the first advice I got was to join an association. So I would say that's the first advice I would give someone. When I joined the Outdoor Writers Association of America, that helped launch my career because it allowed me to network. It allowed me to find mentors. It allowed me to look at what other people had done, were doing, were thinking of doing, and find my path. There are some great associations in the travel space that you could look at. The International Food Wine Travel Writers Association, the North American Travel Journalists Association. I mean, just to name a couple. SATWA, very old association. they're old. But that's another association you could participate in. OWA is shifting more into the travel stuff as well. So that's good. Therese, you're a firm believer in one that's not travel, that's ASJA, which is helpful.
American Society of Journalists and Authors. Now that's really just writers, but it's been very real interacting with these people and learning about and hearing their experiences personally when it comes to writing. And there's people in it who, of course, are travel writers, but there's a lot of people who are medical writers or technical writers. And in general, it all kind of overlaps in things you can learn. So I found that quite helpful. I also would say that there's a lot of people who want to get into this. And so the first thing they do is they want to give everything away for free. And that sort of harkens to why newspapers are dying today, because when they all wanted to get on the internet, they all just wanted to give it away for free. And now people expect it for free. So if you start diluting the quality of and the world of travel, the business of travel writing by simply giving it all away for free, you may not be able to backtrack to a place where you're actually going to make a living out of it, and you're going to work toward a future of travel writing that may not be what you want to see.
No, that's good advice. Yeah, I think that's in general. Go be with the people that you want to be, and you'll learn from them. It's groups, it's friends, it's organizations. That's great advice.
But find your voice also.
Exactly.
I mean, that holds true from when we were first writers to today, and when there's so much noise, it's you have to have your voice. You have to have, what is it that makes you special?
Yep.
You hear the same advice for any content. I mean, it's the same advice being given to, you hear that question, I want to be a wildlife photographer. Well, great. There's 10 million wildlife photographers, which means that there's going to be 10,000 photos of that bear biting a salmon at Katmai Falls. It's a cliche photograph. Don't take it. Please, God, don't take it. Find something else to take. What makes you special? Same thing with travel writing. It's if everybody is chasing the same content, then there's nothing special. People are reading the same stuff over and over again. So find something that other people haven't written about. And that, I think that's one thing that Therese and I have constantly done that's made us stand out to direct marketing organizations and others who have chosen to work with us, continue to work with us, is, everybody wants to go right. We go left.
Yeah.
Invariably, we will go left, because there's always something to find to the left turn.
Same thing with podcasting. You got to have put your spin on things. Yeah.
Yeah. Tried podcasting. Didn't work out. I don't have the patience.
Good on you, Rick.
Well, I'll tell you, it's funny that I am where I am, being a guy who's a little bit introverted and didn't talk much as a kid. And all I do is talk for a living now. It's weird, but it's been good. I enjoy it. I love it. It's great. Yeah, it's been fun. And I have, very fortunate to have a great group of folks, both in the industries I cover and like people like you guys that I've known for years. And just, it's super fantastic. So thank you.
Your community.
That's it. Yep. Have you encountered any stories or feedback from your audience that highlight the impact I Travel Tales has on people's lives or perspectives?
Yeah, I mean, it's we hear through comments and things. I mean, we hear frequently that the stories that we have written, especially from locals, which always makes us go, oh, that's kind of cool. I never knew that existed. Or I knew that existed, but I had no idea how cool that was. We're going to have to go see that. I think the ones that mean the most to us, though, believe it or not, are from the direct marketing organizations, because they deal with our peers. They deal with hundreds and hundreds of travel writers. And we've gotten so many testimonials from those folks that have told us this is the best content we've ever seen. And that means a lot.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
It hasn't translated into huge traffic, but that definitely means a lot. How about you, Therese?
Yeah, and it's not just the content, but it's our manner in working with people, because we aren't just newborn, wet behind the ears sort of influencers and such. Not to say that I'm old, but and Michael, you're 65, I just found out. But
Right.
there's a way we go about researching a trip and a destination, and people will tell us, oh my gosh, I love the way you're really involved with this, instead of just having them come up with some generic itinerary that
Yeah.
everybody else has and giving it to us, and we go look at it and we write the story that everybody else has. We don't do that. We don't want to do that. And we tell people that, and they tell us that they love how involved and detailed we are in working with these things. And we're, hoping and assuming, and we hear this occasionally from people who do get involved, that they do like the detail and the slightly different take on some of the travel destinations that we are going to.
Well, again, that puts the specialty in specialty, right? You make it unique. You
Yeah,
don't
but
do what
that's
everybody
true.
else
That's
does.
exactly right.
I mean, that's what you got to do these days. And then I think the more granular you get with that, the better the content ends up being. But
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I mean, it's again, and I mean, you look at people. I'll throw one name out there: Chubby Diaries. And none of your readers have heard of Chubby Diaries, look it up because the
haven't
guy's
heard of it,
amazing.
yeah. Okay.
And he has created. He's actually going to be the keynote at the Adventure Travel Trade Association conference in Asheville.
Oh, cool.
But he has created this persona, and again, that's about creating community. And the guy is amazing. And it's because he's realized who he is, what his content is, and he's gone all in on creating him.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, he's phenomenal.
I'll bet. I'll have to look him up. Have to
And
get
I
him
think
on the
that's,
show.
And so you hear, and he hears regularly, and he just got an endorsement from me. It's just
Yeah.
His content is compelling because he's been unique, and he's asked questions that other people don't ask, or he's doing things that other people don't do. So that's again goes back to your other question of what advice you give other young writers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. How do you approach collaborations and partnerships within the outdoor and travel industry? And can you share any memorable collaborations that you've been a part of? I mean, you kind of just alluded to that, right? You spend time talking to them and exploring with them and diving a little deeper than anybody else has.
Well, it's a partnership in every sense of the word. I mean,
right.
We ask. We go in asking what it is they want, but we're also very clear about what it is we want. And we try to find, we're very clear going up front with people that we're not there for a one and done story. We make it very clear that we're immersive in how we like to travel. The only way to understand the heartbeat of a place is to actually spend time listening to the heartbeat. And so we try to do that. And I think as we start talking back and forth, and Therese is so good at this, I'll let her kind of go into it, but it's like she really starts asking questions and getting details, and even making destinations. I'm like, oh my God, I hadn't thought about putting a writer on that.
It takes a lot of research.
Yeah, there's definitely things that we suggest
yeah.
that we want to do. And it's usually getting truly involved in some kind of event. It's not just observing, it's usually participating in some way. And the same with interviews. And I suppose that's my newspaper reporter background, is you just sit and you listen, and then you ask all kinds of delving questions. And, you know, people appreciate that for sure. In terms of other partnerships and collaborations, these days, every creator and influencer is out asking people for free stuff. And we don't really want to do that.
Or to pay for stuff.
Oh, really?
You pay me and I'll give you all these people.
Right. Now that's becoming, I think that's on the downward trend. It used to be 10 years ago that people could say, oh yeah, well, I'll come and you pay me this much for that story and this much to do that, and you pay me for this much for that. And frankly, that's not editorial, that's advertorial. And so that's not something we've ever wanted to do. So we don't want to partner in that way. We also, originally, certainly the idea, and this is why some people become travel writers, want to partner with destinations just so they can get free trips. Well, then you get put on a trip with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, and suddenly everybody's writing the same story. And we don't want to do that either.
Right.
So we need to be able to partner with people who appreciate the fact that we're independent, and want to find our own way and want to tell stories that aren't like what everybody else is telling.
Yeah, our stories don't come from fam trips. We've been on a few fam trips because it's the only way to see a place or get an introduction for a place. But I can pretty well guarantee that a destination that if we're on a fam trip, you're not getting a story because we can't, not from that type of an experience.
Yeah.
It's a great taste test, if you will, to say, yeah, okay, we want to come back and this is what we want to focus on. But
yeah, it's probably a good introduction to the area, but then you got to go back and figure out what is in that area that's going to fit your unique angle to travel and stories and all those things. Yeah.
Correct.
Right. And when you're with a group, frankly, you don't have the time to sit and do the delving questions and the longer interviews. It's all kind of hit and run in many ways. And frankly, something I was taught as a newspaper reporter is if you're in a press conference or in some kind of meeting or whatever, you don't raise your hand and ask your best question in front of everybody else, because then everybody else has your best question. And that information. You just sit there in silence and you ask it afterwards. So I don't want to go to a destination and start inquiring about all these cool things and asking about all this great stuff, because then I'm going to share it with everybody else.
Yeah.
I'm going to hog like that.
That makes sense. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, she even tells me I'm on a need-to-know basis. So it's like,
yeah.
Close your ears, Michael. I'm going to ask a question.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
That's pretty funny. So, any exciting projects or plans you guys have for the future?
Oh yeah,
that you can talk about. Or that
in 2 weeks we're off to Argentina.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, we're going to go photograph up in. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great place. And, love that place.
We're going to go photograph.
Our last trip, unfortunately, was a little too short, and this one we've said that's it. We're going to go spend some time. We're going out into the Puna de Atacama, Argentina's high plateau, high desert, for about 2 weeks.
That's one of those places where, like Spain, you have to go spend some time. You can't go.
You have to, because it's so remote and there's nothing really out there. I mean,
well, and the other thing is the lifestyle is very relaxed, and there's no. I mean, at least when I was there years ago, I haven't been there in a long time, but.
Well, out in the Puna, there's not a lot of people living. That's the thing.
Oh,
there's a couple of little towns, and the rest of it is just salt flats and sand dunes and desert and abandoned train stations from all the mining that used to be out there.
There's a lot of mining. There's a lot of mining coming now because it's a huge lithium resource. So I'll be interested to see how that's affecting the environment.
Interesting.
But yeah, I can't wait for that because Therese's going to get to photograph endless night skies, and I'm going to be able to photograph flamingos and other migrating birds. So we're going to be in our happy places.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Yeah.
So that's a coming trip. Let's put it that way.
Any shifts to what you're doing? Anything you're gonna take on some audio podcasts?
You want to do a podcast for us?
I could be talked into that. Yeah.
Let's take that offline.
All right. Yeah, definitely. Well, that's.
I mean, we like podcasts. I have a face for radio, so that tends to work for me.
Me too.
But I just keeping it, and Therese and I have talked about this a lot, keeping it more simple so we can spend more time traveling and doing the things we love to do and producing the content that we love to produce, and less chasing our tails, trying to be something that somebody else tells us we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
I'm off the Google train. We're gonna stop doing the whole worrying about the SEO. I mean, we're still going to do it, but we're writing for us. Yeah. We're taking photographs for us.
Good for you.
And for our community and for the people that want to appreciate what it is we do. And so, I can speak for me. That's our big change.
Yeah, well, that's where when we talked a bit about the Substack newsletter and that kind of newsletter that would go out that would potentially feature a photo and a story about it, that would potentially feature a personal experience in some place. And since those are the things that are getting engagement and sort of reaching the people that we want to reach, I mean, that's probably some of our plans for the future in that regard.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And people want us to lead some trips. We've thought about that. And you may see us in another year leading a photography trip somewhere.
Yeah, if you keep, I think if you keep that part of it very, really limited, and really special, then it can be, trips are one of those things, as you know, Michael, you and I did trips at A16 and other places. It can be a grind if you're a guide. But if you just do one great trip a year or a quarter or even two a year, probably a little more doable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we've talked about that. And again, that would be doing trips for our community. And maybe taking people up into the Puna on a guided trip that is just, we're not going to teach you photography, but it's a great opportunity and you get to have our experience and our knowledge along with you. So,
or into the Dolomites.
Yeah.
Or into the Dolomites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like both of those. Yeah. Cool. So the hardest question I ask is coming up next. We've already talked a little bit about it. Do you have a favorite piece of gear under $100 that's always with you?
Always with us, or always we pack along with us? It's not always in our pocket, right?
On your trips. I mean, you walk around home with it, but it's when you leave to go do your thing, what's something that you always have with you under $100?
Does it have to be one?
No, I mean, how many do you have?
Because Michael will laugh. There are definitely a number of little things that always go with me on trips because I find that they come in very, very handy. I have an inflatable camp pillow, a smaller kind of camp pillow, because for the life of me, I have found over the years that pillows you get in places are either too huge or too flat or just simply not comfortable in some way. And I can use this thing as my pillow, and I can use this thing underneath the other pillow if it's just as support or something like that. And I always have it with me. I may not always use it, but I always have it with me just in case.
That's a good one.
I also really will always have with me. Now, I use flashlights for my light painting and night photography. So if I've got my photo kit, I'm going to have flashlights. But even if I don't have my flashlight night light painting lights with me, I will still always have a small flashlight stuck in my backpack. Because we end up in places where you have to see something. We'll end up in like tunnels. I don't know what. It is coming so handy. I know a lot of people use their phone, but maybe I don't want to use my phone because maybe I want to use my phone for taking pictures or something instead. I like having this little flashlight that I can use. And I always have, I can go on, but I always have a very small.
Let's stop it at 3. Your top 3.
Okay, we'll stop it at 3. I have a very small stuffable day pack.
Oh, yeah.
Because how many times that's come in handy to unfurl it to use for shopping in a location, for carrying extra gear somewhere, whatever. It comes in very, very handy.
Those are great. Yeah. Michael, you got anything?
I travel with Therese because she carries all that great stuff. So
in my stuffable day pack, yes.
and she is definitely my favorite. So I mean, that kind of
there you go. That's it.
She's a lot more than $100.
I was going to say under $100. I don't know about that, right? I was having trouble with this, Rick, but I think I came up with one that does tend to be. You're not alone. I'll tell you. It's this.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Well, I mean, power bank is always with me.
Yeah.
Just because. But is that a favorite? To me, that's a necessity. So I always have that with me. And I started doing this more because of Therese, because she would carry one. But I've started tucking one almost every time I'm on a trip now, a night ice gear tie.
Oh, that's
gear ties.
Usually one of the thicker, longer ones, because I can't tell you how many times I've needed to, hang a cell phone when I'm trying to read it on a plane, or secure something, or there's so many uses for it. So that's a good one. I definitely have, and again, it's got to be one of the thicker ones. I've used it in my photography. I've used it in all sorts of different ways to kind of repair things. So there's that. Now, they're not for sale.
We do have one other thing, right, Michael?
Yeah, they're not for sale, and they will be offended if you do try to sell them. But Therese and I started many, many, many years ago when we first were dating, collecting little animals that meant something to us from around the world. And so
these are stuffed animals, mind you.
Yeah, stuffed animals. Yeah, we didn't bring home a real llama or
I've been to your house. I remember seeing all those animals.
So we have probably about 100 stuffed animals. I know it's ridiculous.
No, that makes sense. A little
But
memento. I got you. Yeah.
well, but
But it's
this
not
is
just
the thing.
that. It's not just that.
We travel with them. So
All of them?
we select.
No.
No, there's usually a huge fight over who gets to go.
Wait a minute.
But Therese
The
will
fight
take
is not
one, and I
between
will take
us.
one.
The fight is with the animals.
With the animals.
right.
The animals don't fight amongst themselves, do they?
Yes, they do. Yes,
They do.
they
It's
have
all-
arguments.
It's incredible. But we travel, and what's funny about it is I can already feel people's eyes rolling as they're listening to this. But it has been an icebreaker for us in so many situations.
I'll bet.
To on the plane, we'll get the animals out. Therese always has one. I have one, and we'll set them up. And the flight attendants will stop. And suddenly, there's times we've had flight attendants engage in conversations with them. We have in China gotten them out and had literally kids that were totally shy suddenly coming up to us, interacting with us. We have been in places where we've had people literally run back to their car to get their stuffed animal so they can introduce it to ours.
Yeah.
Great
icebreaker.
It's fun. And it also,
Now, the thing is this is not just a stuffed animal that's thrown in a bag. And frankly, we did this before it was kind of a thing on Instagram to do.
Right.
Because our stuffed animals are from places that mean something. They're usually an animal that means something from that place. But here's the kicker. We call them our kids. They all have names.
See that? Yeah.
They all have names, and they all have characters, and they all have voices.
Personalities. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
They have
next time I come visit, I'm
personalities.
gonna need a presentation or something.
Yeah,
You will.
you can meet Helga and Beatrice.
I don't think I've been introduced to maybe one of them or two of them. I don't know, but
I think you've met Rascal. But yeah.
That's cool.
I'm not sure you've met Herr Wittgenstein.
I don't think so. I think I would remember that.
No. Yeah. Yes, indeed. So
That's
anyway,
good.
those that I'd say would be the one item. If you say the one item we always travel with is if I'm by myself or Theresa's by herself, we've each got an animal. If we're together, we've each got an animal.
Yeah. Talisman of sorts.
Yeah.
I like
because they're also friends. Like if one of us is traveling alone, I mean, when I went down to Death Valley a couple of weeks ago, I had, since I was driving, I had a slightly larger one, and Benny and I would have conversations, and I would say goodnight to Benny at night, and I would say good morning to Benny in the morning. So we're kind of crazy like that.
I like it. No, I like it. I like it.
And if you go onto our website, you'll find they do appear in our photographs.
Oh, we'll have to find a couple of those when we do the images for this episode.
Yeah,
I'll find some.
they're definitely there.
That's very cool. How about books? I know you guys read a lot. Do you have a favorite book?
I read a lot of historical fiction.
Okay.
And so I find that I have become very involved in the past with a lot of Ken Follett's historical trilogies, although now I'm reading he keeps adding on to them, dating back to 1200 up to 2000. But the historical fiction that he does, not just the Eye of the Needle stuff, is amazing. Kate Quinn has some fantastic books. Again, historical fiction genre, I would say. I'll just say that generically.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Michael, you?
Oh, I mean, that's
it's hard.
That's tough for somebody that reads as much as we do.
Same, yeah.
I have to just go back into history of books that meant something to me as a kid, and books that also when I was a younger man. So, 2 years before the Mast, I could read that over and over again. Endurance, the Shackleton.
That's top of my list. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I can read that over and over again. More recently, anything Bill Bryson writes, for the most part. Some of his more recent stuff I don't like as much, but some of his other stuff in a Sunburned Country, I think, is one that's when he was in Australia, that's just brilliant writing. It's great travel writing, but it's just funny.
Cool.
And anything Paul Thoreau writes, yeah. And then, of course, the classics, Aldo Leopold, all that kind of stuff, the natural history.
Right. Those are all good. And how can people follow up with you guys if they want to find you? Where can they find you and follow you?
Well, since we spelled our name HI Travel Tales. It's at High Travel Tales on all the different social media places.
That's easy.
And our
Okay.
website is also, that's super easy. And our website is also hitraveltales.com.
Cool.
And our newsletter is hitraveltales.substack.com.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put in High Travel Tales newsletter, if you spelled High Travel Tales right, and got the tales after it, it's not High Travel and it's not High Tales, it's High Travel Tales.
Right.
And that actually comes up in their Google searches too. So we're pretty easy to find in that way. And we would certainly appreciate and love to have any subscribers, any followers, Instagram. Certainly Michael and I each have our own Instagram accounts. It's mine is just simply my name, Therese Iknoian, and Michael's, I think yours is, what is it, Photos by or Michael Hodgson Photography? I forget now.
I can't remember, but that's way too much to get people at this time.
Yeah.
So I mean, if for your listeners, the one place I would just love to see them engage, and I think they could become part of our community, and we would welcome that, is hitraveltales.substack.com.
Yeah. We'll link to all that stuff in the show notes too.
That's our newsletter, and you can find us anywhere from there.
Cool. Awesome. Well, as usual, it's been great talking to you guys. I appreciate the time, and we should do this more often.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely should, although I think the listeners will get tired of it.
Well, if we do a High Travel Tales podcast, we have to come up with something to talk about once a month at least.
That is true. We can do that.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I will talk soon. We will talk soon.
All right, Rick. Take care, man.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or spread the word and tell a friend. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Saez.